shadow, cloud, image, that shell image, which I hold on that thing. That is why the people prepare too much in the society, because they want to hold on that image. They realize that the image doesn't exist at all and also not last long, so they have to prepare. If the people high position or high class in the society, so they try too hard. They try so hard to build up that image. How much you try, image is image. It don't exist. That is why I feel something like okay, I can enjoy whatever. Maybe happy, okay, happy. Unhappy, also unhappy. But no me here. No idea. So already?
Yeah.
Wow.
So what is this exactly now?
Okay.
Free. He talk.
So you bring the question, I think.
Bring the question.
Just enjoy a cup of tea.
សួស្តីជនជាតិខ្មែរវគ្គនេះវគ្គភាសាអង់គ្លេសអត់ទេមិនហ្នឹងចឹងវគ្គភាសាអង់គ្លេសក៏សៀណាឲ្យកូនចៅឲ្យទេពូនិយាយភាសាសាមញ្ញទេអ្នកចេះអង់គ្លេសមានន័យថានិយាយពី I think you don't know about the Four Noble Truths. You know it? You don't know it?
This is the heart of the Buddha's teaching. Mostly the people discuss about it and make it as...
The Four Noble Truths. I think maybe you don't know.
Maybe I don't know.
Only in the Buddhist scripture the people they learn
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. No.
So today we share about this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoy it. Okay. So now should we start?
Okay, come on.
Okay. So, okay. Okay, I can talk
I'm
with
a
you.
little bit nervous.
Okay.
But only nervous exists.
Yeah,
so.
nervous exists. Don't relate to it. Nervous actually is the kind of the feeling that you cannot explain. But the people try to explain something that they don't know. Like nervous. How can you know the nervous? It's just a memory like scary or frightened a little. It is just you explain it. If without explanation, everything exists as it is. No explanation. It's something like I love you. So the love, can you explain that love expressed? No, no word can explain love. But the people love because of something, because that love is a feeling. So this is just information that you grab on the book, that's just a word. Nothing can explain it. That is the reality. But you can talk about it. And sometimes you feel nervous. Okay, let nervous come in. Maybe your heart beating. Okay, feel very nice. You can enjoy that.
Okay.
So now because you listen, and I feel also happy to talk with you. Because to talk a lot, to talk alone with the phone or with the Facebook or whatever, share something like nobody here. So now you encourage, maybe something like inspire to talk. We got one question from friends. For his friend, he got from that question is something like about the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths.
Ask about look for the way to get enlightenment. Yeah, like that. Now we talk about enlightenment, but follow the Four Noble Truths. Yeah, by direct, direct.
Yes, it is something like we call direct path.
Yep, like that. Like the Buddha teaching is the heart of the Buddha teaching.
Yeah, yes.
To get enlightenment.
Yeah, that I know.
Mostly if you look at the scripture in the book, mostly Buddhists interested in the Four Noble Truths, because that Four Noble Truths is highlight about the way that we can see the truth and realize the truth and get enlightenment. So every people interested in it, and some people get the misinterpretation, or sometimes people get the misunderstood, or they get wrong information, because it's an ancient teaching. So let me tell you a little bit like the Four Noble Truths is very simple.
Okay.
The truth, the fact, the reality.
Yeah.
So in Buddha word we saw Ariya Satya, noble truth. So the truth, it means the reality, the fact, the actual thing exists. So the first we call the noble truth or suffering.
Suffering.
Yes, suffering or unsatisfactoriness. It is something like the people accept that life is unsatisfactory.
Okay.
We accept, like, okay, some people express like, my life is so unhappy, my life is stressful, my life is something like suffering, or my life is unsatisfied, something like they express that word. So on hearing that word, the Buddha make it one point or something like to show that, okay, now suffering exists. Because of you accept that suffering exists. So the Buddha have to follow. Enlightened one have to follow the society, not against the society. That is why if the society said, okay, suffering, okay, let's take it easy. Like, take it easy, okay, life is unsatisfied, suffering or broke up, whatever, okay, I don't bother with you. I accept that, okay, now let's assume that suffering exists.
Yes.
Yes, it is one point, suffering or unsatisfactoriness. And then the Buddha go on to second step, to the second truth. First truth, like suffering. And then Buddha go to the second step, is the cause of suffering.
Cause of suffering.
Original suffering. The Buddha have to point out that, okay, now suffering exists. The suffering exists because of cause, because of origin.
Yeah.
Without origin, without cause,
There's no suffering.
suffering doesn't exist. So the Buddha have to link between the first and second. Because you accept that suffering exists, that is why the Buddha have to point out one more step. Like, okay, suffering exists because of the cause or origin. Now let's find out what is the origin of suffering. Let's find out what is the origin of suffering. Can you guess something? Maybe what is the origin of suffering or cause of suffering? Can you think about it a little bit?
Oh wow, I don't know.
Okay. Maybe you can. Okay, like you have a sore throat, like you have a influenza. What is the cause for that? Yeah, a wound for that.
Yes. Yeah.
So in the same way in life, you have suffering or unsatisfactory in life also. What is the cause of that? What is the origin of that?
In life.
Yes. So the Buddha point out the second noble truth is something like the cause, and the cause is the origin of suffering is like you don't like it.
Nah.
You don't like it, and you cling to it. You attach to it. This is the cause of suffering. Something like you are old. You're old and sickness. And then I don't like old, I don't like sickness. And then suffering happen. Suffering is something like physical suffering. It feels like a old age, sickness and death. And the people said that this is suffering. But for enlightened person, say that it's a natural process. No one does it.
Okay, yeah.
Is it old age is suffering? Is it death is suffering? Is it illness or sickness is suffering? It is just you don't like it.
Yeah, it's just because you judge it as...
You try it, you don't like it.
Yeah.
And then you make the suffering here. Because you don't like it, you make it become suffering. Because you don't like the way it is. You don't like the way it is, and suffering exists. It's something like I sit here and the people come and blame me or criticize me, and then I don't like it, then suffering happen. But if they criticize me or blame me or curse me, I sit here and I listen to their word without judging, without hating, without love or without attachment. So is it I suffer? No. Really. So between the first and second, you see the cause. Because of the cause suffering, then the suffering exists. You see?
Yes.
Very clear.
Yes.
So the first I want to show that is it suffering exists or just because of the cause, because of origin.
Because of the cause.
Yes, because of the cause. So without the cause, suffering exists or not?
It doesn't. Without the cause, it doesn't.
So in the beginning, suffering have or not?
Sorry?
In the beginning,
Yeah.
there is suffering or not? It's just you make it?
Yeah, it's just like because I judge something
Yes.
as suffering.
Yes. In the beginning, there is no suffering. Like in nature, in the beginning, while you are born or die or whatever, you are growing in the first step. The first, when you was born, no suffering at all. But when you grow up, you cling to something, and you hate something, you don't like something, and you like something, then the separation here, separation the nature, and then suffering happen because of the cause and origin. So this suffering, because the people make it, or it happen natural suffering?
People make it.
Yes, people make it. So between the first and second, the Buddha point out like, okay, the cessation of the cause. It means that when you see the cause, and then the cessation of suffering. The cessation of suffering is the third noble truth. It means that the suffering stop. The suffering cease to be. It dissolves. No more suffering. When the cause disappear, no more suffering, right? So the third, the Buddha just to point out that when you see the cause or origin of suffering, then you don't believe your mind. You don't hold on to the mind or cling to anything. So at that state, suffering no more. So in that state, the third noble truth we call the cessation of suffering, or some Buddhist word we use nirvana or nibbana or enlightened state. So in that state, it's just the cessation of suffering. It means that no more cause and suffering disappear.
Yes, makes sense.
And then the four noble truths, it say about the way of living. After you see the reality, you see the third, the first, second, and third truth. Then the way of life will come in, the way of living. So when you come out from seeing clearly the suffering, original suffering, and the cessation of suffering, when you see it clearly, then the four we call the path of living, the way of living. So how can you live in daily life? Okay, the Buddha point out 8 way of living. Like, okay, you have to have a right understanding about your life, about nature. Automatically, no Buddha teach you. It is come out automatically. It's just a result. It's just the product of seeing the first, second, and third, and then the fourth is the product or result. It's come up. So there are 8. It is just something like you have a right view about life, and then you have a right thought. Whatever you think is right.
Oh, okay.
And then the third, you have a right speech. Whatever you speak is correct, absolutely right. Don't worry. And then the fourth, right action. Whatever you do, you never harm anyone, only love, compassion. And then right livelihood. Whatever you will not steal anybody, or whatever, you never harm anybody. Your action become a right action. And then the sixth, right effort. You can do your job or whatever in your daily life. And the seventh, right mindfulness. You have mindfulness or awareness throughout the day. You sit here, you relax. Whatever happens, you feel the stillness or beingness here, and your mind all the way here and now, always. Even if you think to the past or future, whatever, but awareness is here all the time. It's something like your awareness work automatically. No effort here. It's just effortless awareness. You sit here, you let the mind swim. It's something like awareness become the ocean, and then you are dolphin or you are a whale or shark that swim, but the shark or whale cannot swim beyond the ocean because the ocean of awareness here and now. Awareness is powerful, and so whatever swim cannot escape. Yeah. And you never bother about your mind because the mind is a tiny fish, cannot escape from the ocean.
No.
When you have that kind of awareness. And the last one we call right meditation or right concentration. Right meditation is something like you have some kind of powerful focus, or whatever you do is something like full attention here. But this one is not making. It's not like you try to achieve. You not try to gain gain it or practice it. But nowadays, the world teacher or the religious or Buddhist teacher, they try to teach the people to have the 8. They practice the 8 vulnerable part. This 8 they practice. But in the Buddha's teaching, he taught 8 is just the product of the 3. It's something like mindfulness. How can you make it? It is automatically. Awareness. How can you practice? It's something like you just here now and then let awareness throughout your body and throughout the space, wherever it comes. So no effort here, no practice here. So these vulnerable truths, nowadays the people get confused or misunderstood. It's the 4 and the 3rd. The Buddha count like a suffering, the origin of suffering, and the cessation of suffering, and the path leading. They translate Magga Satya, they translate the path leading to the cessation of suffering. So they confuse the word like a Magga Satya. It's something like the path, it's the way leading to the cessation of suffering. So they practice the 4 in order to get the 3.
Oh.
They practice the 4th in order to get the 3rd.
Yes.
So they put the wrong way, something like they count 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 3rd.
Ah, okay.
They feel something like okay, I only have a suffering and origin of suffering I have, and I don't have these 2. So they have to cultivate the path in order to reach to get the 3rd. So it is the wrong explanation or misinterpretation of the people. They feel something like we have to get something. Enlightenment is not gain anything. It's just to see something clear, see clearly in life. So they practice the 4 noble truths, like the part I tell you. They practice meditation or concentration, or they practice mindfulness. They even practice right speech. Yeah. They speak like they said, okay, right speech, I have to practice it. Okay, I have to speak lovely or kind or whatever. They practice everything they practice. But for Buddha, they saw that. And then the Buddha point out, is it you really can practice right speech? Just go and then sometimes you make a joke, sometimes fun, and sometimes with the people. And right speech, how can you practice it? Because the speech it comes from the thought. So when you see the origin of suffering, automatically it disappears. It disappears. So it is very clearly that after seeing the first, the second and third noble truths, and then the 4 is happen naturally, automatically. Your eyes open, your eye open, and then you see the world very clearly, and you smile, and you feel like I'm here all the time. No effort, no practice. And the people, they practice because they want to get something. So they always compare Buddha's teaching with the world business. They said, without practice, how can I achieve something? No, you achieve nothing. That is why you practice nothing. But they always compare like, okay, practice meditation is something like a play a channel. The more you play, the more you become skillful.
Yeah.
Like you ride bicycle, the more you ride, you become more skillful. No, it is just the teacher explain you to give you motivation or whatever. Have ever you notice yourself like you make a cell improvement from young until now to change the habit? It doesn't work. But the people try to practice because they expect something in return. They expect something. They always feel enlightenment is something like solve all of my problems. If I get enlightened, okay, I will be happy all the time, no more suffering. Or I will be something like they feel guarantee or security in enlightenment. But enlightenment doesn't provide you anything, because you get nothing from enlightenment. But you just have you see the world as it is, really, very clearly. So in the beginning, I just point out suffering doesn't exist. If the Buddha come up and then the Buddha said, what you are talking about, suffering? I see no suffering. So conversation doesn't link. There is no conversation, that's discussion here. So the Four Noble Truths doesn't exist. But because of the kindness of, sometimes we call the great compassion of the Buddha, that is why Buddha have to speak with the kid like, okay, you have suffering. You have suffering, okay.
That's so funny.
It's something like, okay, like, psychiatry or psychology. So when you come and then they will listen to you, okay, I know you're suffering or something. So they listen to you attentively. And at the end they solve. But when he listens to you, he knows that you don't have suffering. Whatever you explain, it's just you explain about suffering, but not suffering at all. You just describe it. It is just describe about the suffering, but not suffering. Because the Buddha always point out the way it is. The way it is. It's something like here is the way it is here. If someone massage me, okay, the way it is here. Like pleasant or unpleasant is natural sensation. But we always hold on to the pleasant and don't like unpleasant. We always hold on to the goodness and don't like the bad. We always try to perfect ourselves and don't like imperfection. So we separate all the time because we want to exist. I want to exist. But the I itself is just the image, the self-image. So when you look to the eye and the eye dissolves into your heart, even you come into your heart, in that point no question. Even though have the question, but the question is happen in the mind. And you no need to solve all the questions that the mind bring to you, because you don't believe the mind anymore. So the suffering is stopped already. From the beginning no suffering, and the end also no suffering. But we accept the suffering. Like nowadays the people accept the stress as the part of life. So they live with the stress. It's something like, okay, stress is the part of life. I have to accept it, adjustment or negotiate with it. So it is just the world society, like the teaching and the people get it or spread that understanding, that view and to you, and you believe that. You believe that, okay, I have a stress and that is part of life, and then you hold on it, and then the people make it as a real, take things for granted. If you hear something and you take it for granted, and you make a belief around it, but actually from the beginning doesn't exist. But we make it because we don't like it. Like I can sit here. If I feel pain, okay, it is just a natural process. Even though I miss my family, okay, miss. But I don't know what it's happened. But we want to explain like, oh, this is not good emotion, bad emotion. No, you are judging. You are judging it. Like I sit here, I miss my girlfriend, and I listen to the song, and my tear come out, and then like, oh, my girlfriend, okay, I miss you, and my tear come out, and then immediately my mind said, okay, this is not good emotion, it's a bad emotion. You make yourself low down, you make yourself stressful or something like that. The judgment coming and make your mind accept that, okay, not good emotion. But how can you separate the good emotion from the bad emotion? It is just the half of knowledge, the half of the mind that separated. Without the knowledge, without the mind, you cannot explain. You cannot separate what is good emotion, what is bad emotion. Even though the tear come out, very pleasant, very enjoying. Because no judging here, no separation here, and no you there also, no identity here. It's just emotion, the fact, no ego, no self. So in summarize, I just to point out like the Buddha teaching or the Buddha expound or something like, and I don't want to use the word teaching. The Buddha is just showing, just show the reality. He doesn't teach anybody. He just show what you already have, show what already exists. Just show, not teach, or just advocate the reality. Just express what is already exists, and the people take it seriously and then practice to gain something in life. That is why they try hard, even though they come to the Buddha's teaching, and then they practice whole day and night. They want to gain something, without look at who want to get it. It's just the mind, and the mind is very tricky. So when you see that mind, you don't believe it. Whatever your mind tell you through your ear sensation, you don't believe it. You don't hold on to it seriously. It is just the mind. You can do it or not. It is your freedom. Your freedom there. So from freedom you act, not from mind. The people act from mind. So the mind think or have emotion, and then they act from the mind. Like, okay, I have to do something, or I'm happy. They act from the mind. But for the one who see the truth,
take it as a real tea talk.
they act from the freedom.
Even talking, don't take it as serious. When you take it as serious, your energy strengthens. When you far away from happiness.
Okay.
Yeah. But most of the people, when they talk something, they only pay. And then after talk, they get retired. They get tired. Because we forget, we flow on the mind, and the mind leads us to focus on anything, and then deeper and deeper and deeper like that.
Yeah.
But the way to get happiness means you relax, sit and relax. Yeah.
Like while we are talking, we focus on one point.
Yeah.
On one point. When you listen to me, we forget all the nature around us. The sky, the cloud, the wind. So we focus on one point, and we cannot talk the whole thing, but the whole thing is here. While you are talking with me, you forget the bird singing. I also forget it, because we're interested in the topic. You can hear the bird. At the moment we don't hear.
No. Yeah.
So this is the Four Noble Truths that the Buddha showed to us, and to see how the link to the first, second, third and fourth. But if the beginning that you see that suffering or unsatisfactoriness doesn't exist, then the work no more.
No.
The job is finished. But if you accept that, okay, I have a stress, I have suffering, then look at the cause. See the cause. That because your mind don't like it, you make judgment there. And then you see the cause, you drop the cause, then suffering no more and again. Actually, suffering doesn't exist again. It's already doesn't exist. But if you assume that it exists, okay, don't worry. Look at the cause and drop the cause. Don't believe your mind. Then the cause disappear. Then suffering no more. So this is, I talk enough. Finish?
Yes, enough.
Okay.
Okay, enough.